Hello and welcome to a Feature History special episode. Yes, I'm doing another one. This time I'm not covering an event in history, but rather a concept. The concept of a duel. A battle of one-on-one combat done in order to protect honor or gain respect. Now, why am I covering this instead of the request for the Yugoslav or Great Northern War that you put in every video? Well, because this is the most elaborate way I could convince you to buy Mordhau. Anyways, more about Mordhau at the end. The duel isn't a revolutionary idea. We've always had a loose-ish idea of honor, whether it be a matter of official recognition or just to please one's ego. It might have been present in pre-recorded history. Then again, so may have a lot of things, they didn't record it. Tribal rituals present in Maori, Aboriginal and indigenous Brazilian cultures did contain one-on-one combat, so I could only assume that other tribal cultures had the same. Generally though, it wasn't a great idea to kill someone you might need to help you hunt the next day. That of course changed with the advent of agriculture and the creation of cities and claimed territory. The whole war thing started to happen, and so perhaps duels may find their place there. Well, in fact, they did. Champion warfare. The best of the best from opposing sides met in no man's land to prove their might. Sounds fantastical, because it most likely was. Records of such a thing appear solely in tales such as the Iliad and the Hebrew Bible, which aren't exactly peer-reviewed sources, are they? These stories didn't only appear in Mediterranean societies, just about every literate culture had their 1v1 me legend. Champion warfare though wasn't just all make-believe, it did actually happen in pre-Islamic Arabia, Japan, Russia, the other countries. For its role in early antiquity, however, we only possess legend. Now, duelings may not have happened in the battlefield, but it probably did happen in this massive building in the middle of Rome. Now before you say those weren't duels but an orgy of blood and violence amongst the enslaved, you're wrong. Before you slightly smugger and self-assured history nerds start writing in the comments that gladiatorial combat was a sport and had nothing to do with honor, a man who fought well would gain respect, so therefore honor, so therefore The tradition of gladiators spans all the way back to Rome when it was but a wee boot on the underbelly of tribal Europe, and it only continued and expanded from there. It featured not slaves thrown to animals or other slaves, but stars willing to test their skills and put on a show. They'd perform exotic forms of combat in one-on-one scenarios where most of the time no one actually died. The sports and its arenas were a testament to Roman civilization, and they showed it proudly. But as money dwindled and Christianity was brought in, it fell into decline, until being made illegal in 438 AD. As we all know, Rome fell, but the duels remained. The pagan practice of holmgang was adopted into Scandinavian law in the early Middle Ages. Holmgang could be used to solve a myriad of disputes, especially those of honor. So how does one holmgang? Well, I'm glad you asked. Two men would meet in an arranged place, a field of honor, and using the latest in stabbing or bludgeoning technology would see who would be the first to be injured or die, whichever fit your fancy. This was of course an exception to the murder laws, and refusing to participate would have you outlawed. With the turn of the millennia though, this fell out of practice and was criminalized. Just prior though, the Holy Roman Empire began to embrace their old Germanic tribal battlings into common law. Trial by combat was sanctioned. Similar to holmgang, serious criminal disputes could be resolved by trial by combat, the idea being God wouldn't possibly let the innocent die, right? A bunch of cultures had similar systems or rituals to trial by combat. The idea of assaulting someone rather than arguing was quite appealing. Trial by combat was quite different to holmgang in ways. The to-be-defeated could cry out craven, or something similar to capitulate, losing the dispute. Also losing if they never appeared to begin with. It also had the clever little addition that one could select a champion to represent them. You wouldn't be fighting little old Gunther the merchant, but instead say hello to Otto, the dockhand. The 13th century saw its decline as a sensible trial by jury was introduced. It remained quite popular within the HRE, but generally commoners were not inclined to fight. Knights, on the other hand, loved to fight. The practice of passage of arms evolved in the late 14th century, where a group of knights would set up on a bridge and like a school kid would demand a password, but this password was a feasibly fatal fight. If you left, they called you mean words, disgracing you. Jousting also became a thing, and wasn't too fatal, so thumbs up from me. The 16th century saw trial by combat and the passage of arms fall out of practice, but dueling would never fall out of practice. The Renaissance gave way to the notion of a gentleman, a man of honor, and how would he protect this honor? In the most gentlemanly way possible, stabbing the fuck out of you. Inspired by the prior plethora of practices, the aristocrats, bureaucrats, diplomats, pussycats, and smelly rats took up dueling. It was quite simple. Upon offense, the offended would throw down the gauntlet. A gauntlet made of soft cotton, but a gauntlet nonetheless. A time and place was arranged and the gentlemen arrived with their seconds, who if they couldn't convince their superiors of this idea's low quality, would arrange their equipment. The duel was typically sabres, and beginning with the 18th century, pistols. More exotic options were available such as billiard bowls, balloons, and even pork sausages. Fights ended upon challenger's satisfaction, or in certain conditions, first blood, wound, or death. Most weren't death though. The Catholic Church tried to crack down on it, but clearly didn't. Its popularity continued across Europe and colonial America, and it was most popular in France. Alas, as ideas of honour waned and laws toughened, it declined through the 19th and 20th century, completely gone by the outbreak of World War I. Today, the odd law remains here and there that someone's forgotten about, but try it and you may find out that most judges aren't very farcical people. There's fencing, sure, but there's nothing very personal to it at all, and there's certainly not enough death. Generally, as people today, we have to be satisfied with telling Bruce that it's you, me, Macca's car park. Now, like a father sitting down with his son for the talk, it's time I told you about Mordhau. You may have thought to yourself, man, I want to play a multiplayer melee combat game, but just about everyone out there is crap, or aging, or a Ubisoft game. Well, now there's Mordhau, and it looks smashing. It has a lovely website detailing the superabundance of features, and a Kickstarter that, if I actually got this video out in time, is still going, and you should give it every dollar you haven't yet pledged to my Patreon. I'd now like to give my corporately obliged digital smooch to the Persnickety Brush, Steve Graham, Zedfa, Thrace Vega, and Grandpa Hex. The more impersonal peck to all the other sometimes lovely patrons, and the next episode we'll be getting back to all those wars you preteens are all about. Toodles.